Hello there, coming on real quick to let you know about some links in the description. I'm having a short story published in collaboration with about 13 to 14 other indie authors, and it's on Kickstarter right now. You can get an ebook for €10, and next week's video is going to be a lot about the short story and the rest of the stories that are going to be in that anthology, as well as some other projects that I've been working on and I'm looking forward to publish at some point through some magazines or other collections. The Kickstarter is going to run through the end of August, and then the book will be coming out on September 14th. Thank you for listening. On to the rest of the video. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa, and this is going to be my July and a little bit of June wrap-up. So a couple of these books I finished at the end of June, but most of them. So first, 3 Pride reads. One was Someone You Can Build a Nest In. I heard that this has ace rep, and it is about an ace human and a shapeshifter who is kind of ace. Her reproductive system does not work the same way as ours, so it's like not even a thing to her. So I really liked how it explored that aspect, and it is entirely from the shapeshifter's perspective. It's really interesting because she is kind of a horrible sort of monster that eats people, but she pretty much, during the entire book, she only eats people in self-defense, and I'm not sure how much she ate people not in self-defense before the book, but it's quite gross in parts. Human is from a rather horrible family, and so it's a lot about her horrible family, how it is to fall in love with someone who is so unused to anyone caring about them and is so used to always being the giver in a relationship. So I really liked all the examinations of those aspects, as well as the really weird fantasticalness of the shape-shifting. 5 stars. Then Dragon Queens. I found this one on the Queer Liberation Library. It is a queer normative world where sexism is still a pretty big issue. It's got kings and queens and princesses and dragons and arranged marriages. And so the princess has run away from an arranged marriage, gets picked up by a dragon, kind of sort of kidnapped by the dragon, and a mercenary goes off to get her back because there's a reward from the king. She goes and she rescues the princess, and quite easily. That part is not the difficult part of the story. They hatch a plan together to get the princess out of an arranged marriage with a person who treats women badly by pretending to have a dramatic love story themselves. And in order to pass this off, they have relations in public quite a lot. One of the parts I enjoyed most was during this sort of pretending to be desperately in lust with each other. They negotiated consent really well and worked really hard at that, but there were times where they messed it up and somebody got hurt emotionally, and there had to be apologies and figuring out how to not have that happen again. And I really like that because sometimes when you're in, especially a new relationship like that, consent mishaps are going to happen as you're exploring new things that you want to do. And so I really liked that that was shown, and that recovery from that, and that not meaning the relationship had to break up was really, I really like that. If you like fake dating, especially where there's lots of pretending to be spicy in front of other people or getting into spicy situations to try to trick other people, I think you will like this. Because there's a lot of those aspects of, oh, she's not really attracted to me, she's just pretending on both sides, and that's a fun dynamic to play with in stories. 4.5 stars. Then I also read the first volume of My Love Mix-Up by Aruko and Wataru Hinekure. This is about a boy finding out that his crush has a crush on a different boy, but the way in which he finds out makes the other boy think that the first boy has a crush on him. So it's a lot of mixed up crushes and people not understanding who the crush is and who has on what. As I recall, I read this almost a month ago, there wasn't much of a homophobia issue in the classroom. Guy number 2 is really nice about rejecting guy number 1. And the rest of the series is apparently going to follow how this mix-up continues to eventually, I believe, lead the 2 boys to get together. With boy number 1, of course, not being able to tell boy number 2 the truth, because then girl would be found out, her crush would be found out, and he would be breaking the secret of his friend. 4 stars. Then this month, I read a middle grade, Last Hope in Hopetown, which is about a girl who has been adopted by a pair of women vampires. Vampires are out to the world, and I think a few other types of paranormal creatures as well. They get blood from blood banks that the government pays for, and they have rules, and they have to have extra social workers. So there are child protective services that go and visit the children of vampires, the human children of vampires, and adult protective services go and visit the families of adopted child vampires, because there are child vampires who stay children even though they're hundreds of years old, which in this book is handled as to whether they are minors or not by having their brains also not develop past the age that they were turned at, as well as their bodies. And this story is about a government agency being evil. I really did like the vampire characters, the adoptive parents, and also our main character's best friend is a child vampire. The way in which this middle grade had the adventures happening for the child while having the child have really good, protective, useful parents was that basically one of the parents was incapacitated by magic type stuff, and the other one was desperately trying to handle that, while our main character snuck out and tried to handle it separately herself with her best friend, the vampire. So I really liked how that was handled as well. 4 stars. Then I read a couple of non-fictions. First was In Defense of Looting. This was recommended by one of my local buddies, and it was really good. It's basically talking about how looting as a form of protest has been demonized for a couple of reasons, and that doesn't mean it's not effective as a method of revolution / protest / direct action. It starts with kind of the history of what has been considered looting versus, say, conquering or things like that. And then it goes into talking about how it was illegal for Black people who had been enslaved to free themselves. And it was considered as taking property away from whoever enslaved them. And then moves into how the whole concept of private property, which is different from personal property, and I'll let you look that up yourself, but private property has been weaponized against Black people and been denied to Black people, basically for the history of the U.S., and then goes into how stealing and other types of law breaking are pretty much necessary for any civil rights oriented movement. So it happened during the civil rights movement. It just wasn't talked about as much as the nonviolent, and especially nowadays the focus is on the people who are super into nonviolence, such as what's his name? John Lewis, and to a lesser extent towards the end of his life, Martin Luther King Jr., and talks about how those people were protected often by people with guns, including sometimes Malcolm X, who threatened, if anybody hurts these people, I'm going to come, me and my people are going to come after them. And how in various areas during the civil rights movement, even though in history we're mostly taught about the totally nonviolent and also a lot of the times non-law breaking parts of the movement, there were actually law breaking and violent things going on, usually in self-defense. As the Black Panther Party talked about, they had guns a lot, but they pretty much just engaged in self-defense. They were not out conquering anybody with their guns. Speaking of which, you see here I have replaced my Ida B. Wells figurine, Barbie, going into the fall season when I switched my decor, and I wanted to bring up that she was part of the self-defense movement as well as writing this paper. What's it called? The Memphis Free Speech paper. Ida B. Wells said, and was quoted in this book as saying, "A Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black home, and it should be used for that protection which the law refuses to give." And she wrote extensively about and raised awareness of lynchings. I thought it was really excellent. Brought up some ideas and comparisons that I had not heard before, and definitely I learned a lot of history from this book that tends to get brushed aside or painted differently in other books that I have read. Mutual aid has a boring cover. It's not just about mutual aid groups, it's about organizing in leftist spaces of all kinds. Well, anarchist organizing for any purpose. So very applicable to what I would like to do. And it is a lot about non-hierarchical command structures and how to engage with that and how to set them up and how to work in them and how to repair when there are issues. Easy to use lists and with columns and things that are like comparing working compulsively to working joyfully, with like having very long hours versus setting boundaries, and they kind of help you know like which category you're in when you have these characteristics to your work. And I think it's really great. I haven't hauled this one yet, but it's from Bob's Beach Books in Lincoln City. So those are all the books I wanted to review. Yes, that was a very small number of books for me for over a month of reading. I have not read much this month. I have been doing other things. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!